Have you read Margaret Atwood's book, and have you done so recently?
It's funny you should ask me that question, Karl, because I have read Margaret Atwood's book recently, The Handmaid's Tale.
What are the odds?
I know, right? I was being pestered left, right and centre by people to watch The Handmaid's Tale, and I said that somehow I had let my life progress this far from 1985 and not read The Handmaid's Tale. I even remember going to pick it up in the uni bookshop in the Co-op, going, oh, that's a terrifying looking book, because the cover's amazing if you haven't seen it. You just look it up. You don't need me to tell you what it looks like. But I didn't read it. I read something else. There you go. So I've read it now. Mm. Fire away. What do you want to know?
I want to know, is it good?
Oh, it's great. It's great. And I don't want to give a book review, but as a contemporary response to some really vivid and electrical changes in people's lives of the early 70s, women's lives, and all kinds of groups of people who are finding a voice and finding a way to try and strike out against prejudice and lack of opportunities and discrimination. It's a tremendous book that reacts against what would happen in a world if these counterfactuals occurred. It's a book where you get a sense of a dystopian future, but also you're brought into the past, because everything that happens in that book, of course, has happened before. It's happened in Nazi Germany. It's happened in the Salem witch trials. It's happened in the Old Testament. There's a precedent for every single event or set of circumstances in that book, which doesn't take away from its originality at all. It's a marvelous book.
When was it published?
1985 it came
85,
out. Yeah,
right, okay.
But she was writing it in 1984, of course, so there's you can't help but make comparisons to George Orwell's book 1984, in that he does a very similar thing. He takes a completely recognisable world, bases it on what happened in the Soviet Union, and he just tweaks it just a little bit here and there. You know, the only difference was in Britain in 1948, people didn't have a television in every room. And of course, look at the world now. It wasn't that far-fetched then, and it certainly, when 1984 rolled around, wasn't that far-fetched.
In terms of the overlap between the book and the series, you've seen a couple of episodes of the series. Are you seeing it as being very faithful to it, or has it moved it into a different space?
Yes, and yes,
yeah,
and both. Any adaptation runs the risk, of course, of offending everybody who loves the book. Okay, you can watch something and have hot tears of rage burning down your cheeks as the book that you loved is destroyed in every kind of way. Or you can be amazed that they've been able to take a book and render what's true at its core and then create something else that's either cinematic or something that takes the story into different directions. I feel that the very basis of the society, the premise that we're asked to go along with, is quite different from the book. The book doesn't lay everything out for you. A book has the advantage of being able to do whatever it wants, and it doesn't cost anything extra. The television series is claustrophobic, and it should be, because the sense of society is claustrophobic. And it moves, and another great thing a show can do, it can move the action along much faster. So in the second episode of the show, we're already really far along in the book. And I'm very interested to see, and I expect to see, that this series will have characters and action and events that are not in the book. One thing that stood out, the first thing that I noticed about this TV show when I was reading the book, I'm reading a book that's set by a Canadian author that's set somewhere in North America, somewhere like Harvard. Margaret Atwood has said that it's, the intention is that it's set in Harvard. When I'm reading the book, without consciously being aware of it, but maybe, it's all white people. Yeah, every single person in the book is a white person, right? And that kind of also suits the type of society that you think has been created, even though nothing is mentioned about ethnicity. You get the sense it's all white people. Now, the TV series, that's not the case at all. Significant people in the TV series, in terms of their relationship to the unnamed female character in the book, but is named in the show, they are not white people. And that brings a whole other set of questions about the kind of society and what's happening to the various and especially the society that has been torn down and replaced by Gilead, the contemporary society that this show's about. So I don't think you could ask for more as if you're somebody who reads books and sees adaptations, and whether they're Jane Austen ones or there are some authors that are constantly being redone for the movies. I think you'd be very satisfied with this. I know a guy who watched this show and stopped at the second episode to read the book.
Right.
He thought, this is great. I'm going to stop and read the book, which is something you don't hear of very often.
I think the show definitely does have echoes of what's going on, and I think it is sort of it's a bit of a place marker, a bit of a sort of a warning sort of flag in some ways, but I think that it is a very overstated kind of response to the sort of the re-emergence of the fundamental right, the sort of the voices of extreme right Christians in American lawmaking. I think there is there are definitely echoes there, but I think that the show there's one scene, I think it's the third episode, so you won't have seen this yet, where a woman is on trial and she's literally gagged, right? And to my mind, it was just such a heavy-handed, literal representation of an idea about what is going on that I kind of felt it was indicative of the weakness of the show.
Okay.
And I got to say, I'm not finished it yet. I've watched 6 episodes of it, and I really am enjoying it. And I think that there's a lot to admire in it. But I do think that its depiction of this sort of fundamentalist right kind of iteration of America is kind of overstated. And I think the idea that by stealth the culture could be basically torn away from women, and not just women, but by men who are not like that, is kind of implausible, I think. And so I kind of see it very much in the realm of it is allegory, right? It is heightening things that are going on to make a point about the world in which we live and the state of play of the world. I don't see it as a scenario that is likely to actually unfold in real life. I sure as hell hope it doesn't unfold in real life. It is a pretty dire existence. I think one of the most interesting things about it is the picture of environmental degradation that it subtly paints. I mean, you don't see you don't see a city in ruins, you don't see, billowing smoke in the sky, you don't see any of that, but the scarcity of produce, the fact that chemicals in the ecosystem have actually led to this decline or almost eradication of fertility. I mean, those kind of things are actually really, really interesting, and I think they're, again, they're exaggerated, they're extrapolations from where we are now, but they're warning signs that I think are worth heeding as well. Elizabeth Moss, pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're cavilling here.
I think Elizabeth Moss is the perfect actress to play somebody caught up in a cult. Whether it's a cult of fertility or some other kind of cults, she's perfect. She does an excellent job. Perfect casting.
Blessed are the meek.
And blessed are those who suffer for the cause of righteousness.
Well, that was The Handmaid's Tale, and this was The Clappers. Andrew Young, till next time.
Karl Quinn, thank you very much for listening.